Have you ever had a long night? Maybe you're sick. Maybe someone you love is sick. You're tending them. Or maybe, for whatever reason, you cannot just get to sleep. But you know, long nights can get worse than that. Way worse than that, because sometimes you're not dealing with your sickness or the sickness of someone you love. Sometimes you're dealing with the sickness of the world. Ever since I first saw the images from Mariupol, I cannot get them out of my mind. Metislav Chernov and his colleague Evgeny Maloletka, until last week, had become the last journalists left there, and they risked their lives again and again for images like these. Children and families struggling to make it through very long nights. This family, next slide, in a basement, struggling. And they were escaping from this. Bombs and missiles raining down on their homes, killing parents, children, grandparents, anyone in the way of one man's sick vision of the world he wanted. How do you deal with long nights caused by that? And you know, you don't have to be in a war with bombs to face days of long nights. You can be at war with an enemy that you cannot see, that no one can. But still you so know it is there. During October of last year, during the height of the pandemic, for reasons I still do not understand, I faced the longest nights of my life. For 3 months, my wife and son had been away, my son in Canada, due to COVID rates here, and I fell into a pit so deep that it threatened to swallow me up. I went looking in our home for the gun my wife kept for protection. I never found it. I do not know what would have happened if I had. Long nights hid in ways that you don't see coming, nights that even threaten your life. A few weeks after those nights, I had lunch with a friend, and I shared how scary that time had been, and he looked at me. I could see he had known nights such as those too, and he shared, when my marriage broke up, I moved to a high-rise apartment building. Several nights, he said, I had to avoid the balcony. I couldn't trust myself out there. Your long nights may not have threatened your life, but have you known them? You lose a loved one, a spouse, a child, a relationship dies, or the burdens, the worries of life so weigh you down. What you need to remember when nights like that hit your life, what you need to remember when nights that we thought a thing of the past come roaring back into the world, pandemics and now war. What gives you perspective to move through the longest of nights with peace, with hope, no matter how long those nights get? In these words, from an ancient song, God shows you the way. Let's listen and hear what God has to say. In the Psalm of David, Psalm 30, listen and hear the word of the Lord. I will extol you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up and did not let my foes rejoice over me. O Lord, my God, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me. O Lord, you brought up my soul from Sheol, the place of the dead, restored me to life from among those gone down to the pit. Sing praises to the Lord, O you, his faithful ones, and give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. As for me, I said, in my prosperity, I shall never be moved. By your favor, O Lord, you had established me as a strong mountain. You hid your face. I was dismayed. To you, O Lord, I cried, and to the Lord I made supplication. What profit is there in my death? If I go down to the pit, will it not praise you? Will it tell of your faithfulness? O Lord, hear and be gracious to me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned my mourning into dancing. You have taken off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, so that my soul may praise you and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give thanks to you forever. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. How do you get perspective when nights get long? How do you move through nights like that, times like that, with hope, even with strength? In these words, God tells you, you remember what lies behind everything. You remember what lies behind all creation, what lies behind even the darkest of nights. But here's the tension. You forget to remember. You forget the intention behind everything. See, one of the painful realities of being human is you focus on stuff you need to forget. And you forget the stuff you need to remember. What do I mean? Take compliments, for example. If someone gives you a compliment, most of the time, you don't remember it that long. You might even discount its significance, even its truth. But on the other hand, if someone criticizes you, boy, it is hard to forget that. Even when you know the criticism is wrong, it hangs on. You might have a critical word that someone said to you years ago, and you still cannot forget it. In other words, you tend to focus on stuff you need to forget and forget the very stuff you need to remember. And in the psalm, you see this tension, this forgetting to remember, but not right at the beginning. No, the psalm starts at the end of the story. The writer, David, begins the psalm at the end of the awful ordeal, the terribly long night, the one that brought him even to the brink of death. Now he has come out on the other side. His health has returned. His enemies, whoever they are gone. And he is rejoicing. But he did not start there. No, in the middle of the psalm, you get the rest of the story. All the stuff David forgot to remember. First, he tells you how in his prosperity he thought, nothing is going to move me ever. God has made me strong as a mountain. Do you see what he forgets to remember? About 30 years ago, I traveled to the country of El Salvador to explore a mission partnership with the church I then served in New York. By the way, it did begin, that partnership, still going on 30 years later. But back then, I had spent little time in parts of the world where the water carried bacteria that my body was not used to dealing with. People warned me about this. They told me, Kennedy, do not drink the water. Don't even eat the salad unless you know it's been washed in bottled water. But you know what I thought? I thought, I have a strong stomach. I don't think the water will bother me. Now, the first few days, I was careful. But then I loosened up a bit, ate a little salad, and nothing happened. I was okay. So after that, I ate and drank whatever. I did not worry at all. Now, Jeff, the member of the church traveling with me, who had traveled way more in places like El Salvador, did try to warn me. But I thought, I know better. My stomach can handle this. And my stomach did until the flight home. That flight lasted 3 hours, but it felt like it lasted a lot longer since I spent most of it in the bathroom. By the way, airplane bathrooms, really, really small. I forgot what I needed to remember. Not only that, my misery lasted yet another week. Why? I didn't want to go to the doctor. When I did, I got better in 2 days. Again, I forgot what I needed to remember. Have you ever done that? Have you ever eaten or drank something that you knew you shouldn't and paid the price? Have you ever got tripped up by being too overconfident in an area of your life? Too often, I get in the most trouble when I am feeling the strongest. In my sense of strength, I lose touch with my weaknesses, my vulnerabilities, my own tendencies to mess things up. I forget what I need to remember. It happens here. David feels he is strong as a mountain until, well, he's not. And then he goes in the opposite direction. He panics. Before he thought he was God's favorite child. Now he fears he is God's forgotten child. He cries out to God, even tries to bargain. He cries out, God, if I die, what good will I be to you then? Do you see what is going on? He is focusing on something he so needs to forget. A false picture of God. In that picture, God becomes a scarily unpredictable boss. So one moment you're God's favorite, and the next moment, God doesn't want to give you the time of day. That's why David is trying to bargain, trying to show God what a valuable employee he is. And I get that. I used to have that image. When I'm going through a hard time, I can get trapped there again. I start asking myself, is God angry with me? Or delivering some sort of divine payback for my failing? Now, granted, many times the hard time I am going through does have something to do with a foolish decision. But that's not divine payback. That's life. Recently, my son fell and broke his elbow for the second time. Did God cause him to fall to teach him a lesson? No. But was he being a little unsafe where he was climbing? Yeah. And I hope he remembers to be more careful in the future. But having said that, it's not what is going on here at all. Because whatever happened to David doesn't have anything to do with the mistake he made. It just happened. Like so often bad stuff in life does. Yet when it does, this false picture of God rises up. A God who one moment adores him and the next moment doesn't seem to care at all. And a picture of God like that, you need to forget. If that's who you think God is, forget it. That God does not exist. That God does not exist in the Bible, and that God does not exist in this psalm. That's why David begins the psalm the way he does. He begins by proclaiming the God who does exist, whose anger is but for a moment, and whose favor is for a lifetime. And then an image, do you see the difference? No matter how you mess up, even at the worst, God's anger lasts a moment. A moment. It's God's favor. It's God's love that exists for a lifetime. It is the love that is God's default always. In fact, the anger that lasts for a moment just points you back to the love. Years ago, I remember a therapist telling me that if a couple comes in and they are angry at each other, she can work with that. That means they are still committed. They are still invested in the relationship. There is love there. Because their anger is pointing to their love. Because what lies behind the world is that love. This God who loves, this God who is love. And it is that love that wins, that triumphs over even the darkest of nights, the sickest of moments. In fact, you could say that love is winning in you every day, and you likely do not even notice it. Years ago, the physician writer Lewis Thomas shared a secret that few of his medical colleagues cared to admit, even though they knew it to be true. Thomas said most of the time our bodies heal themselves. If you just give it time, the body will solve the problem without any intervention at all. In fact, your body is preventing problems pretty much throughout your days, and you don't even realize it. Now, he did not write this to keep you from going to the doctor. He knew sometimes that's the only thing that will help. No, he was pointing that out to show you what miracles your bodies already are. See, every day, your body, the body that God gave you, is defending you from enemies, from pathogens that threaten your life. And what's true of your body is true of everything. A world where every day countless things go wondrously right to create the beauty and the abundance that you and I so easily take for granted. You and I can forget to remember what a miracle every moment of life is. But does knowing that alone get you through the darkest of nights? Does knowing that offer an answer to the horrors of the long nights of war that Ukraine faces now? For all the long nights that people face? It doesn't. Not completely. But God did not only offer you the miracle of your body, of this creation. God did something more wondrous than that. God came to you as a body, a person like you who gets sick, who knows pain and heartache, who knows how long nights can be. And in Jesus, this God faced the darkest, the longest night of all. On that cross, he suffered a darkness deeper than anything you and I can imagine. And why did he suffer that darkness? Jesus suffered it because Jesus loves you. It's not about the suffering. The suffering does not save. The love does. The love that did not hesitate to suffer out of love for you, to even die, to bring you home. For Jesus went through the darkness to bring you to the dawn, so that weeping will only linger for the night, so joy will come with the morning, so joy will be the end of your story, so joy will be the end of every story. Before Jesus died, he said this to his followers: "Very truly I tell you, you will weep and mourn, you will have pain, but your pain will turn into joy." And then Jesus said this: "When a woman is in labor, she has pain because her hour has come. But when her child is born, she no longer remembers the anguish because of the joy of having brought a human being into the world." And on the long night of that cross, that is what Jesus did. Jesus suffered as a mother does giving birth, to give birth to joy in you, to bring you that joy, to birth a new world, a new creation into being. And God will not stop until every long night is no more, until there is no more weeping or sighing, but God wipes away every tear. In your long nights, do not forget to remember that. Love is writing the end of your story. Love is writing the end of every story. So weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. And joy is the end of the story. As I shared a few weeks ago, do not forget to remember that darkness is not the end of your story, of any story. The dawn is. In the long nights, do not ever forget to remember that.